Hello and welcome back to UCL Review, where we break down the biggest results and talking points from the best sporting competition in the world. There, I've said it. And joining me is the best presenter on Football Daily. It's Michael McCubs, and welcome
Dougie.
aboard, McCubs.
Stop it.
And we were gonna actually just focus on one game, but the madness in Madrid means we're gonna cover two. But we are kicking off in Amsterdam, McCubs.
Yep.
Why is that?
Yes, it was a big game tonight for Liverpool, wasn't it? Obviously, that disappointing 2-2 draw with Everton on the weekend meant that they dropped already 4 points this season, which by their very lofty standards that they set over the last 2 years is quite poor. For context, they hadn't dropped 4 points, or they dropped 4 points in their first 28 games last term. Obviously, that 7-2 battering at the hands of Aston Villa has been a bit of a stain on their beginning of the season as well, and after the weekend as well, of course, missing Virgil van Dijk, Thiago and Alisson remained out as well, so a weakened spine of the team going into this game against Ajax at the Amsterdam Arena, but they kicked it off with a win, a 1-0 win, fairly unremarkable for a fairly fortunate own goal from Tagliafico, but yeah, I think Klopp will probably be pretty happy. Obviously, Van Dijk's horrific knee injury, which David Ornstein has claimed could be even worse than first feared, meant that Fabinho had to partner Joe Gomez in the heart of the Reds' defence, and then he went for a midfield of Milner, Wijnaldum and Curtis Jones. For me, it felt quite like he was going. He wanted to prove a point in keeping Liverpool quite solid at the back. Fairly solid in midfield as well, not let Ajax through and keep that clean sheet, which he got in the end. But it was a nervous beginning for both sides, I think. No one created any major chances. I think that was probably testament to Klopp's game plan in particular. Adrian was forced into a smart save after 33 minutes with Neres crossed for promise, who shot straight at him. And then Liverpool went up the other end. Mane turned Schürrle easily, before he scuffed a shot which was going very far wide, and then Tagliafico somehow couldn't get his feet right at all, went into his own net, and just an unfortunate one, that quite a bizarre own goal, and he's actually become the first Ajax player to score an own goal in the UCL since Vernon Anita against Real Madrid in September 2010. Lovely little bit of trivia there from you, Dukes, in the script. So after that, Ajax actually came into it a bit more, I thought. After 43 minutes, Fabinho forced into that great goal line clearance from that Dusan Tadic flick, if you call it a flick or a dink or whatever.
A little chip.
A little chip over Adrian. David Klaassen then hit the post early in the second half. But after that, it kind of petered out. I think Ajax looked a little bit more tired going into the end of the game. Klopp obviously made that three-man substitution, taking off the entire front three. Clearly, he is looking forward to that game with Sheffield United on Saturday, with points to make up in the Premier League. But amazingly, this was only the second meeting between the sides, and the first since 1967 when they met in the last 16, which I'm amazed by, considering how much these two have featured in European competition in the last 50 years. But this Liverpool victory means they have now gone 14 games unbeaten against Dutch opposition in continental competition. But Dougie, Ajax came into this in pretty decent form, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, and everyone was pretty excited for this game. Obviously, Ajax and Liverpool, don't have a lot of history between them, but they've got a lot of history in this competition. Two teams steeped in success over the years in the European Cup, and the game didn't quite live up to the billing, as you said. Liverpool prepared to be fairly defensive. That high line that they normally play came a good 10, 15 yards back, and they sort of camped outside their box for large stretches of it, hit on the break. It wasn't a game of real quality, but as you say, Ajax did come into this game in reasonable form. They'd won 4 of their opening 5 league games with that one defeat to Groningen, and beat Heerenveen 5-1 at the weekend. That left them just 1 point behind PSV at the top of the Eredivisie, having scored the identical amount of goals and conceded exactly the same. So it looks like it's going to be one hell of a title race in Holland once again this year. But this result continues their poor record against English opposition. They've now only won 1 of their previous 7 games against English opposition in European competition, with their only victory away at Spurs in the first leg of that famous semi-final clash in 2018-19. It wasn't really a dominant performance from Liverpool. They had 16 shots with 6 on target. Ajax got 12 with 5 on target. And I looked at their midfield, Ajax, before the game of Blind, Gravenberch and Klaassen, and thought Liverpool might overrun them. But actually, in playing their sort of 6th and 7th choice central midfielders, you'd probably say, or 5th and 6th maybe, in Curtis Jones and James Milner, neither of whom looked particularly sharp. I think they lost a little bit of momentum there. Obviously, Wijnaldum's not used to playing that holding role as often as, say, Fabinho or Henderson or even Thiago, even though we haven't seen him do it for Liverpool just yet. And that midfield didn't quite have the fluidity that we'd expect from a Liverpool side. And actually, Gravenberch played really well in patches, I thought. Some of his touches around the corner were really effective. Maybe his long-range passing could slightly improve, but it was a pretty good Champions League performance from him. I was about to say debut. I'm not actually sure whether he played last year, but one of his first performances in the Champions League. Lisandro Martinez, excellent at the back, I thought. Made 4 tackles and interceptions, 5 aerial duels, completed a dribble, created a chance and had a shot. I'd say he was going right to the top of the game if he wasn't so short. He is like 5 foot, seemingly about 5'7", 8". Alongside him, Per Schuur's absolute colossus looked really good in this game as well. Some awkward moments against Mane, particularly for that goal, obviously, but a really commanding presence from him. Just the latest of the Ajax sort of production line of fantastic centre-backs. Blind was also solid in midfield, 6 tackles and interceptions, 3 aerial duels, 1 and 2 dribbles. As you said, man of the match, probably Andy Robertson. Difficult game to pick it from, to be totally honest. 3 tackles and interceptions, but he did create 5 key passes. And I've got to say, at the start of this season, it's really Andy Robertson who, you know, that forward line aside, or particularly Mo Salah aside, who's caught my eye the most. I'd say Trent has been fairly average by his exceptional standards at the start of this season. Definitely doesn't look the same attacking threat that he did last year, at least in these early stages. Andy Robertson, though, is magnificent. Such energy. I don't know how he does it, just up and down all day. As you say, this was an important result for Liverpool ahead of that crucial game against Sheffield United this weekend. Then they've got FC Midtjylland, who lost 4-0 to Atalanta tonight, and then West Ham in the next 10 days. Ajax, meanwhile, travel to VVV Venlo this Saturday, who currently sit 9th. VVV Venlo, of course, the ex-home of Lee Cattermole, so always have a special place in my heart. I hope they do well against Ajax this weekend. But yeah, as we say, not a brilliant game. We were expecting more from it, but let's move on to some madness in Madrid.
Yeah, we simply couldn't not talk about this game, Dukes. Probably the result of the opening week of the Champions League. Would you not agree?
Yeah, definitely the standout result. I think Lazio Dortmund also caught a lot of people's attention, but these are 2 very different standards of sides in Shakhtar Donetsk and Real Madrid, especially going into this game as well, because obviously Real Madrid, you've probably heard by now, lost 3-2 at home to Shakhtar Donetsk, but the Ukrainians went into this game as underdogs, but even more so because they were missing 13 first-team players due to COVID. 13. But they ripped Los Blancos apart in the first half with 3 goals. Real Madrid then got back in the game through Modric and Vinicius Jr., but ultimately it wasn't enough. That was the first time Real had shipped 3 in a Champions League first half since 2005 against Lyon, and the first time they'd done so in a home game since the year 2000 against Bayern. So that just goes to show the sort of impact this young Shakhtar side had. And they were out without the injured Sergio Ramos, and Real Madrid, whenever I've seen them over the last 2 years without Sergio Ramos, just do not look anywhere near the same side defensively. And Real Madrid's defence of Marcelo, Militao, Varane and Mendy, I actually feel a bit bad mentioning Mendy on this. He was playing at right back and did a pretty solid job. But Marcelo, Militao, Varane were a complete state, I have to say. The tracking back from Militao for the 3rd goal, Varane and Marcelo getting themselves in a mix for the first one, Courtois not doing really, covering himself in glory for either the first or second, Varane with an OG as well. It was just a nightmare night for them, and I didn't think they got offered that much protection from Casemiro, but there's basics of defending. It's when you come up as a line together, you know, you're unified. Militao and Varane, the spaces between them were vast. And they conceded 6 shots, which doesn't sound horrific, but 5 of those ended up on target, and it wasn't a great night for Courtois, as we've said before. Real Madrid had 12 shots and 5 on target, but that is now their 7th defeat in 8 Champions League games without Sergio Ramos. How shocking is that? And they did think they'd equalise late on through Fede Valverde, but it was then deemed offside. But it was a deserved defeat, you have to say. This was their third consecutive defeat in the competition. The last they did so in the European Cup/Champions League was 1986, and it leaves major question marks after that defeat to Cadiz at the weekend in La Liga over where Real Madrid are right now and how dependent they are on their top players. But credit to Shakhtar Donetsk, McCubs.
Yeah, I mean, an amazing result for Luis Castro's side, wasn't it? I mean, obviously, they're far from, they're far from minnows, in European competitions. They've won 9 of their last 11 domestic titles. Obviously, reached the Europa League semi-finals last term. They beat Benfica, Wolfsburg, and Basel along the way before losing to Inter. But this really was a miracle, like you were saying. Absolutely crocked by all those COVID positive tests. They had to field 8 players under the age of 23, so this really was a very young side. I feel like, probably benefited perhaps from it not being at the Bernabeu, not being in front of fans. That Castilla Stadium, I think it's the Di Stefano ground. It really does feel like a kind of training ground / kind of lower league ground, doesn't it? So I think that definitely takes away some of the fear factor when you're coming up against Madrid, and especially Madrid, who are out of form. But this was their first ever victory over Real in their history, and they actually became the first Ukrainian side to beat them since Dynamo Kiev in March 1999. Now, to give you some context there, their 2 goal scorers, Manos Solomon and Tete, weren't even born at that point, and I believe that Andrei Shevchenko was in his final months at Dynamo Kiev before going to AC Milan at that point.
I'm sprinkling of knowledge from
almost certain he would have scored in that game because he was like on top of the world at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But the key performers tonight, both wingers. Solomon completed 5 dribbles and obviously grabbed that goal. Probably the pick of the bunch. Tete, though, probably man of the match. 3 tackles and interceptions, 3 dribbles, 1 key pass and 4 shots. As for Real, like you were saying, their defence was woeful, but especially in that first half, they really offered very little going forward, and in particular Rodrygo completed 2 dribbles, didn't create a chance and didn't take a shot either. He was taken off for Benzema at half time. Jovic as well, also very poor. 0 aerial duels, 0 dribbles, 0 key passes, 2 shots. Should have taken that header in the first half better as well, I thought. And I think that lack of killer instinct may cost him in the long term at Real Madrid this season, because he has been getting more chances, but he's yet to truly impress. So lots of questions to be asked of Real Madrid, and it couldn't have come at a worse time. Obviously, El Clasico up next on Saturday. Barcelona, haven't been amazing at the start of the season either, but at least they put away Ferencváros pretty decisively on Tuesday night. So they go into that in better form. But we'll talk more about El Clasico on Continental Club tomorrow. I guess that's all we've got time for, Dukes, right? What did you lot think of the games? What do you think about Real Madrid? What do you think about Liverpool's performance against Ajax? Let us know in the comments below. And Dougie, what should they go and watch now?
Well, they should definitely go and check out even yesterday's UCL review, where we talked about Man United's famous victory in Paris with Joe Tomlinson, who was very overexcited, as you can imagine. You should also go check out Tuesday's Euro transfer talk, where we talked about a possible Dybala bust-up, which might force him out of the club as well. So there's plenty of great content to get your teeth stuck into across Euro Football Daily this week.
Sweet. Thanks for watching. See you next time.